Welcome back. I'm Alfred Lambremont Webre, and today we have our panel, which is gathering on Friday, July 31st, indeed, of NewsEvolution, Laura Eisenhower, Patty Greer, and myself. And Laura is going to introduce our panel. And so, Laura, over to you. You're muted, Laura.
Well, yes, it's great to be with you guys. Of course, Alfred Lambremont Webre and Patty Greer, and we've been coming together for quite a number of months, as often as we're able to bring like the latest news, and we all have a different perspective, and it's very complimentary, I have to say. And I have to leave a little early. Normally we would have a bit of a chance to all chat together, but I'm just going to present something about just kind of, the current landscape that we're dealing with. And obviously it's multi-layered, and it's a lot to, articulate. Everybody's kind of having their own experience depending on where you're at and your level of awareness, where you are in your personal life, what you're dealing with as far as the outer, lockdown and control mechanisms being used. Some are having huge breakthroughs and epiphanies and getting things on track in ways they've never been able to before. Other people are going through a deconstruction and a huge awakening that's incredibly awkward and uncomfortable. And some are very, very immersed in certain narratives or social engineering programs that doesn't seem like they're ready to shake loose from it. So, and it's a tough topic because then it starts to get into an argument about right or wrong, and it gets political, but we have to look beyond the political, because we're dealing with major crimes against humanity. And it's really wonderful to see, even though it's not on mainstream news, the fact that there has been protests in Hollywood against pedophilia and child trafficking. And it's just crazy to me, because when you look at YouTube and you put in Hollywood protests for today, there's nothing. But you see huge, huge crowds of people, protesting about George Floyd. Not to say that there isn't, a lot of people are not off base feeling anger based on that incident. But when we lift the layers of what's underneath all of that, there are funded movements and trigger events and psychological operations to steer us away from some of these really important things that need to be addressed. So it's not in the news. You can barely really find it unless you see a friend filming it from the actual events. But it was great to see the protests taking place, and more attention on this Maxwell case and Epstein, because this is the most critical thing. Because as these dark narratives are breathing down our neck with the outer facade of, oh, it's for your safety, and this is the way it's going to have to be, and we're going to censor experts and doctors. And I mean, I think it's getting real obvious to people something's seriously wrong here. But it feels like a showdown of forces, and time is not really on our side, because the more exposure to crimes against humanity, the less these dark agendas will further infiltrate. The more we can call it out, the less of a grip they'll have on human consciousness. And we're constantly feeding the collective consciousness with energy and intent, and just a vibration connected to what we stand for. So let's keep it up, everybody. And that's why we do these kind of shows. And I really look forward to, and I'll have to play it back later. Alfred is going to be talking about the planet Venus, and Patty, what are you going to be talking about today?
Got to unmute myself. I really am also about what's going on now, but I've been nose down in the YouTube world, watching a tremendous number of videos. So I'm really going to talk about the new history of what's happening. So you're going to talk on a little more astrological level, but I love it that you're bringing up the real stories. So I'm just going to elaborate there, and the why and the how.
Awesome.
So, yeah, we're in it together.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of retrogrades this year, and retrogrades give us a chance to go inward. Not a whole lot of outer stuff can really take place when the planets are bringing us inward, but this gives us a chance to really clean house and address issues that need to be transformed, things we need to let go of. I mean, that's the Pluto part of it. So the conjunction between Saturn, Jupiter, and Pluto is something that we're going to experience all year long. And wherever we're at in the process of transformation is going to be different for everybody. Some people are stuck in the growth period. They don't know what to think or what to believe. They don't know how to let go of the old paradigm and the false authority systems that have dictated our world for so long, or the way we should be responding to our world. And of course, there's massive divide and conquer agenda. So it's not just one narrative, it's a lot of different ones in order to make it very difficult for us to get along, that are taking us into a very, low vibration, which makes us really hospitable for archons and parasitic forces, which our governmental system has been. And so that's what the funded movements are. There's always something about making it look like we're making progress, but it's really a hijack. And we have to really recognize the importance of our own individuality, our own personal truth, and be sort of our own movement, represent ourselves, but seek harmony with others and mutual love and respect. And we all, need to have a voice, but it needs to come from our authenticity rather than be filtered through a funded movement. Or so it takes a bit to convince oneself that that's actually what we're dealing with, because there's a lot of manipulation and indoctrination in the school systems, and a lot of convincing of positive developments when it's kind of the opposite. And it's getting more and more obvious when you see doctors and experts being shut down, saying that these things will benefit and cure the so-called virus, and it's being censored, with vaccines being heavily promoted. I mean, it's pretty obvious. So this is happening in this arena, but it happens in multiple arenas. And this is kind of the name of the game in a society and culture that is based in false flag operations and psychological operations that are playing on our wounds and traumas of the past. So a lot of these retrograde energies all throughout the year are going to help us to self-reflect on this. And 3 outer planets, which are very initiatory, are also in retrograde. And this is going to end November, October. The Saturn and Pluto moving into Aquarius, and also Jupiter is kind of like the landing of what one might call the age of Aquarius. And the dark side of Uranus and Aquarius is dark technology. Uranus connects us with higher mind and advancement and inventiveness, but on the shadow side of it, it can connect us with sort of the mad scientists using humanity as a guinea pig, transhumanism, AI, and we already are in a world where we recognize that those things are being used. It's used for crowd control. It's used to steer, the way people think. And insiders talk about how people are merged through nanites in air, food, and water. And there's a supercomputer system that sends waves of desires out at just the right moment to influence mass consciousness in coordination with media, scalar, and weather events and natural biological cycles. So, we have this artificial component that we're kind of skirting while we're, also connecting with our own connection with source and earth, and, the synchronicities and growth periods that keep us aligned with the organic ascension timeline. But this major, assault that constantly is trying to trip us up to assimilate us more and more into the AI. And so we've been breathing in these chemtrails, and it's, in our food, it's in our soil, and different mechanisms used like implants. And of course, vaccines, like tie us into that even more. The global grid system was impacted and infected thousands and thousands of years ago to be able to create these artificial timelines. And they require us as a food source and as a battery to power these things up. So once we recognize that and begin to unplug and call our power back, those systems start to crumble and fall. So it's just, there's a big hope, of course, that, people will, really start to awaken. So the insider I'm talking about, which he has a great website, very informative, is Og Tellis. And anyway, he talks about how everything is mapped out by an artificial intelligence system designed to resist against humanity becoming aware of their true power and the reality of the situation, including the threats and possibilities. So everything is a distraction or an artificially implanted impulse or desire. The entire civilization has been under this net, but we do have the power to overcome this. So these kind of alignments that we're dealing with Saturn next to Pluto and Jupiter, which expands everything it touches, is basically because of Pluto. the death, rebirth, alchemy, and transformation, is giving us the opportunity to let go of the old paradigm, to let go of our connection with false authority and the abuses of power that false authority holds, and the level of deception and facades that they hide behind. So the growth period is that we speak more truth, we stand more in our power, and we come together more, which is under attack. And we see the symbology with the masks, knowing that the masks don't really work, and a possible second wave of an even worse virus. And these bioweapons are real, people are getting sick. But if we can go through the growth period that's available to advance ourselves and expand our consciousness, we begin to be the override frequency that can actually neutralize and dismantle these assaults and dark weapons. So that's kind of where the race against time is that every time we're about to take a leap, the carpet's pulled from underneath us, and some sort of false movement or fear tactic is used that throws us in our survival chakra and kind of digresses us into a place of not being able to think clearly. So the rest of the year, it's filled with a lot of powerful fire energy. We're going to see like challenging aspects between Mars and Pluto and Eris, which is an asteroid connected to the goddess of strife and conflict. So people's buttons are really getting pushed, and we can feel that collective anger. Some of it doesn't know what to do with it. It doesn't know how to process, doesn't know what to do with itself. But a lot is well directed, and that passion is, so important. So Pluto takes us through the death, which is the letting go, but then the rebirth, and then the alchemy, and then the transformation, and then the realization that we are alchemists. We can shift physical reality. We do hold the upper hand over physical matter when we're connected with spirit. That's what this window period is all about. But the process and the death cycle process goes in stages. The first stage of it is very disorientating and frightening. But once we kind of get a grip on it, and begin to find ourselves and find our inner truth and our soul essence and our connection to cosmic and natural law, then we begin to rise out of the ashes. We begin to rise and transform, and that's what's available. And so these planetary alignments are showing we are in a huge paradigm shift. But they put out the bait, and people bite into the bait, and they get distracted away from that alignment. And these distortions hook in and begin to steal and siphon their energy to the point where, without realizing it, they're enabling these artificial timelines. Now, it's very difficult because there's a lot of manipulation, people's jobs being threatened, fines and jail. I mean, and that's just so horrendous. But, I just see us all banding together more and more. Everything we could possibly need is happening on an earthly and cosmic level as far as alignments go. And if we could just detach ourselves and just work together and starve the system by coming together and utilizing resources and also our skills and abilities, and organizing those skills and abilities into helping to build a better and greater world, we're going to be fine. Waiting for that to change, though, and give us, those things, I feel like we're looking in the wrong places. We need to look to each other. We need to look to ourselves and look to the earth, because the earth is abundant. So with or without a money system, there are ways, but of course there are things that are going to make it real difficult, but there are a lot of positive movements and a lot of things happening behind the scenes that I think are going to get more and more clear and obvious. And so we got to let rage and anger be guided into, the power to create change, the ability to turn anger into the passion to play our part and play it well. And help lift each other up, because it's a very up and down thing. I mean, people's energies are all over the place, lots of highs and lows. There's positive news, and then there's really horrible news. And, we have to, shield ourselves and protect ourselves from these, dark technologies, but also understand that we are an advanced technology, and consciousness is way more powerful than we can imagine. And that's the biggest thing that they've tried to fool us out of. So yeah, it's going to be, different for everybody, but the unity consciousness factor is going to require a lot of inner work and ability to really know your true authentic self, because we cannot unify if we're coming in with a lot of programs, because those programs are designed to create a lot of conflict and strife and war. And we need to be patient with each other. We don't have to all think the same, but the best we can do is kind of cut the cords with what is outside of us telling us how to think, and take some time off to determine, well, what do we think? And can we give ourselves that space and ability to kind of have a digital detax from it all, so that we can hear our own inner self and higher self, which knows exactly what to do in these times. So I don't know if, that was about 15 minutes, but that's I'll kind of leave it at that. Any kind of thoughts? And actually, once things go retrograde, we're going to see a lot happening. So when people might feel frustrated, or there's not enough happening, or they're feeling kind of stagnant or exhausted, and like there's not enough movement happening, you know, by October, November, it's going to change a lot. But there's a lot that, you know, we're anticipating as far as the election goes. But we have to remember that the outer world doesn't define us. We need to define reality for ourselves, or else we're not utilizing the fullness of who we are as multidimensional beings. And this is a time where we have to awaken dormant strands of DNA. The most important thing is we recover our treasures. And the reason transhumanism and AI is such a threat is because people make themselves easy terrain for those things to plug in because of that dependency, which is due to a lot of manipulation, of course, and a lot of dark history and trauma that we carry. But we have to help each other rehabilitate and take it to the next level.
Yeah, thank you. Could I ask you a question? I attended last week a virtual conference that Stephen Strong and his held with a couple of other people from Australia around a gathering that the Aboriginals in Australia are holding in Uluru around December 21st, 2020, which they say is a tremendous planetary configuration and some ET gathering there. It's very sacred in their sacredness. And he said, there was a presentation there that said that we're not having, in other words, that these astrological configurations, and the last time they happened was in 1550, when Martin Luther came and nailed his, you know, declarations to the cathedral door, and, you know, there was tremendous changes. The whole structures fell apart. The Catholic Church fell apart. Protestantism came in. Could you address that? Those particular changes coming in on December 21st. Is that something that you?
Yeah.
Or?
Yeah, there's a lot of, you know, repeat cycles going on as far as revolutionary things happening, particularly as planets move into Aquarius. That's sort of what it represents. It's going to be a little bit more solidified because of outer planets, and outer planets move real slow. So once they enter Aquarius, they're going to be there for quite a while. So the solstice week in December, there's a Jupiter-Saturn alignment in Aquarius. Jupiter expands everything it touches. Saturn has to do with the old system and authority, but it takes us on a path of self-mastery through the trials and tribulations of life, and recognizing what rules or what authority structures work for us or don't work for us. And that's part of the challenge of being human, is there's control systems, there's outer authority, you know, the way we were raised, the school systems we've gone to, the governmental structure and what it dictates, and how it plays both sides in order to divide us. The path of that challenge with Saturn is, okay, these are the trials and tribulations to begin to detach ourselves and pull ourselves away from those outside authorities so that we can begin to work with the law of structure on our own terms and gain self-mastery over these outer obstacles. So it's almost like the lower Saturn and the Saturn that we can represent for ourselves are in competition with each other. Not so much the person that's seeking self-mastery, but the system that's targeting people who are stepping into the role of teacher, leader, or self-master. Because once we get into self-mastery, we start to activate our galactic chakras, and we're able to begin to work with the law of structure, but integrate our higher self into the law of structure so that the higher and lower become one, and we're not so polarized. And integration of polarity is everything. So this alignment is very much about that. Yes, it hasn't happened for a while. And this is actually the time where Mars is conjunct Eris, which is all about conflict and war, with a squared aspect of Pluto. And so it's almost like this is going to force a breakthrough, and a breakthrough, hopefully, that will be life-altering in the most positive ways and incredibly, you know, revolutionary. And so this is why I think they're playing every card they possibly can right now. And there's an acceleration of trying everything under the sun to trip us up, because there's been so much exposure against, you know, so much exposure of the crimes against humanity that it's like, wow, you know, if they don't do something to sabotage this, there's going to be no stop to how much of this information is going to get out there. Fortunately, it still is, despite how focused people are on the lockdown or possibly getting ill and all the fear that they're trying to promote. But yeah, so this is a very significant solstice time in December. And it's also, so many planets will be going direct by that time, that I think we're going to be over some huge hurdles, and it'll set the stage for how we experience a timeline for quite a long time, like quite a number of years, because this is the year where the timeline we're on is very solidified. Because even though Pluto will take us through death, rebirth, alchemy, transformation, it gets re-solidified through the energies of Saturn and structure. So what we choose to believe and connect into is going to make or break a lot of years ahead in our future and future generations. That's why it's so important that, you know, people drop everything and focus on what's most important. And that's going to be different for everybody. But we got to get out of the Project Mockingbird, like false media manipulations, and also the opposition to that sometimes can get too polarized, and just really encourage people to just shut all that down. Red pilling and trying to wake somebody up sometimes is a bit premature when somebody's that immersed. I mean, there's only so much we can do, but the more we amplify our truth and authenticity, the more it activates the collective consciousness. So even if one feels like they're not doing anything, just the simple act of doing it in your own life is going to impact things for the better.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I totally agree with every single sentence and every sentiment, because I feel the same. But I'm going to bring it down to the physical plane, which is rare for me, because I've been focused on actual news. I have never been interested in politics my whole life, because it was always people that don't tell the truth, people that are all in it for reasons other than taking care of the communities. So all of a sudden now, though, we are at war. And if those of us that take it seriously don't guide people in a direction of at least waking up independently, like you said, Laura, we're all in it pretty much on our own, and it is an inside job now, how we get through this fearful time, and how we do it with grace when, what's the new thing that all the news, the mockingbirds are all saying? The mask debate. That's the last 2 days. So what I want to say is that first time in my life, I have been watching the presidential press conferences. Me, oh my God. I have been watching the congressional hearings all week. Why? Because things are happening. And because I lived through so much suppression myself, I kind of look at Donald Trump and his son like, haha, Twitter banning, you have no idea. But I love it that this week there was actually a congressional hearing where they brought in the 4 titans of America. Jeff Bezos, the guy that owns Google from some other country, he's not even American, and he's got a strong accent, which is fine. Facebook, Zuckerberg, he was there questioned, and Apple. So you've got the 4 richest guys as far as IT, tech, and they're making a fortune. Bezos just sells everybody's products and recreates them to destroy their independent businesses. But what I saw in 4 hours, off and on what I could handle, was all these Congress people, and I guess I should call them senators, and different representatives, but they were all seriously questioning the titans. And they all had a whole tablet of evidence. So every time they said, you are under oath, Mr. Bezos, I'm going to ask you this question. And he would always answer, like all 4 of them were like puppets. And they all had the answer, oh no, we're totally integral and we care about you. And I would never do that. Our company would never do that. So the senator said, well, sir, what about on this date and this person? Do you remember this person? Because you sued him. So it was one after another, and I was just sitting there going, yay! And it was the very day that I got thrown into Facebook jail for the first time. Now, what's fascinating about that is I've been posting 10, 20 videos a day, maybe 4 or 5 that are really, really good, educational videos for what's really going on in the world today. And I think I've watched enough now and kind of let go of perception. All I want as a documentarian is the facts with evidence to back it up. And there are so many news channels that are doing this. And these people just live for their subscriber numbers and their donations, but they also live face down in the news like I am every day and night, really trying to get to the bottom. But you don't even have to try. You have to light up YouTube and look at the choices and the titles. The first dozen titles all tell us what's going on in the world now. I mean, it is so blatant. And the one thing I want to say to begin, that's my favorite thing about this change, is that I'm seeing clouds in Colorado like I haven't seen since the 1970s. I'm seeing Colorado skies with real clouds for the first time in decades. Now, we're all bothered by what we have been dealing with chemtrails, and I'm sure they're still happening in a lot of places, but there's certainly a lot less, and I see real clouds every day. For me, this is a sign of evolution. This is a sign that good things are happening, and even if we don't hear about it because the news is completely bought and paid for by those monster power grabbers that are so ruthless, George Soros and Bill Gates. They're behind everything evil right now. Those two money monsters are funding, as everybody knows that's watching news or doing the slightest bit of digging, the BLM and the Antifa. They're funding them. And I know people that have gone to, out of curiosity, the BLM website, and they've checked it to see where the money goes. You know, if they make a donation, which they're not going to do to BLM, but they're going and looking. And both of my friends reported back that it basically goes to the Democratic Party. So all donations are going to the Democratic Party, the Clinton Foundation, BLM, Antifa, very, very well funded. So the good thing, again, there are some good things, which is that some people actually have taken this time, not working, to actually ease their stress and to start to breathe again and remember family. And maybe that's only 10 or 20 or 30% that have actually benefited from this time off, where they didn't have to be at work at 7 in the morning or 8 in the morning. So a lot of people have started to be at home more, clean their closet, clean the garage, enjoy what they have. And with it being so god awful to go shopping now, who wants to put on a mask and go shopping? Yuck. Grocery shopping is about all I can handle, and I won't wear it over my nose. And when people stop me, I just look at them and I say, please let me be nice to you. Oh, by the way, I'm smiling under this mask, and I'm going to walk away now. I mean, I don't even want to talk about my nose is out because I have nothing to say. I really, again, it's called the mask debate. Now the Mockingbird media, it was hysterical how 15 of them in a row on some video I watched last night, this is the new, 2 little stinky words that remind everybody to be scared. I think I saw that Fauci, why is he not in jail yet? I think he said that we have to wear goggles now coming up, like that's his new thing. So this guy that mentioned that on his show said, goggles and a mask. So I went out and bought a t-shirt that's got a photo of my face, which is what we're gonna have to do now so that people know who we are behind all this crap. It's like today when I went to the chiropractor, I apologized to them. Oh my God, they have to do that 8 hours a day? And they have to do it right. Because it is, I'm embarrassed. I'm actually embarrassed. I think I'm most embarrassed that we have such a divide in this country because the news owned by Soros and Gates, controlled by Soros is what I meant to say, will not be allowed to give real news. But at this congressional hearing, which happened this week, Facebook, Google, Apple, and Bezos wasn't included in this question, I don't think. But the other 3 were asked the question twice in a row because they had all these rambling answers, and the Congress people kept saying, please stop talking, please stop talking. And they just kept rambling on, Bezos and Gates, Zuckerberg. But the answer that we were looking for was a yes or no answer. Will you promise the American people that you will not sway the vote with your platforms? You cannot be encouraging people to vote Democrat and be hiding Trump's everything. So can you agree to that? And it took all of them a while to say yes. But luckily, the representative was relentless and he didn't give in. So they all had to say yes. We will see if it happens. But following that, only because I watched the pressers, Trump, I think he tweeted maybe, but he said very clearly, good, we basically exposed the four titans, and now they've been told you cannot keep cheating on the elections. You cannot keep swaying the American public's opinion, even though you own the media. And if these congressmen don't make enough regulations to go into effect immediately, I will. And that's what's going on in America today. We are watching the exposure of governors, mayors, and senators that are criminals. And they are acting so badly that they actually, one of those reprehensible representatives actually opened a courthouse for Antifa and BLM to go in and destroy it on the inside. Like outside wasn't enough, the statues weren't enough. And now we have mayors, senators, and congresspeople, not congresspeople, mayors, senators, and governors saying that they want the military to stand down. This is the most wrong approach to freedom in the entire lifetime I've led. I cannot believe that we haven't removed these politicians that are demanding that Trump is going to break the law if a policeman stops somebody from bombing a building or blowing it up or shooting someone. The police have to stand down. I can't even believe what I'm watching, and I'm making myself watch it because I want to help us. And what I'm seeing more than anything is so many people I know that I used to really respect. And all I say to them is, before we have a nice visit, I just need to know, do you like or hate Trump? I'm in Boulder, Colorado, where we have more Teslas and Porsche Cayennes than pretty much any other car. We've totally lost Boulder to Google and whatever big companies are here. But it is, I can't even believe the cars. It's really shifted. So the consciousness is shifted and everybody's still in a hurry. But what shocks me is that when I talk to people, they always say, I hate him with a passion. And I'm really good at my mental discipline, but what I say is, have you listened to anything he has said at these press conferences in the last 6 months? Have you watched his mouth move and the words come out matched the movement of his lips? That's all you should be listening to, not what somebody or they said he said, but what is actually being said. And have you by any chance watched any of the congressional hearings this week? I can't believe I'm saying this. Patty Greer watching congressional hearings, but oh my God, the day before the Four Titans was A.G. Barr. Was A.G. Barr sitting there who's holding the key to lock up all the biggest criminals in America that have done many things that Laura subtly mentioned. But they are so scared of him that when he got on the stand, and the whole day was an A.G. Barr hearing. And it was all these Congress people, but they had preset themselves to not let him answer anything. And that little short guy with his pants pulled up to his underarms, Nadler, he started out with a bang and he wouldn't stop talking. And then he wouldn't let Barr speak and he kept interrupting. I have never seen anything so rude in my life done to a government official at a level that high. But all of them are scared to death because pretty much all of them have been filmed doing highly illegal, horrific things to perhaps children or perhaps other inappropriate acts. But pretty much they're all blackmailed politicians acting badly. So we're in a time where we need a really strong leader. And you know, Trump doesn't really care if you or her or me, if we like him. He doesn't really care because he's on a mission. And he is way about himself being right and being great. So what? Give it to him. I know you hate him because he's rich and he's an arrogant, rude guy who insults people. But you know what? he is pulling stuff off right now behind the veil of the American public, but it's not behind the veil. You watch the pressers, you'll see what he's done. This week, blow my mind, he wrote an executive order that totally killed Big Pharma. And he calls them Big Pharma. And he calls the news fake news. How can you hate this guy unless you're just not listening? Now, I'm not a Trumper, and but I'm a new listener, and I'm blown away because that man is making a difference. And his executive orders, bam, bam, bam. I think insulin came down to pennies on the dollar. And he did an executive order. They are furious at him. Dark Pharma, Big Pharma, Hell Pharma, whatever you want to call them, they hate Trump. And sure enough, he did it in an executive order in the last week or two. It's been done. So his executive orders are boom, 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 out the door. And everybody that hates him is not watching. I'm telling you, everybody listening, I didn't like him either. I was like everybody else. I saw him on The Apprentice. What an arrogant guy. You're fired, I'm great. You know, it's like, why would anybody like him? But guess what? He's pulling off stuff that nobody else has. Who possibly on earth would go up against the worldwide mafia? Trump. And this is a worldwide mafia. The first thing that he said when he came into office is, I and his wife said, they said that they were going to take down human trafficking. What we know now is that human trafficking doubled the number of children stolen, and women and men, young, stolen off the streets, out of their backyard, off a school playground. It is unbelievable. 2003 to 2006, it doubled. 2006 to 2010, I think it doubled again. Now, they said there's a pedophile on pretty much every street in America. What? Yeah, it is so bad. And they explain it that all these people started out looking at Playboy, Penthouse. I remember that, you know, but it wasn't me. It was the guys, the boys, the teens who then grew up and maybe now they're bored. So they got into something really horrible. And now it's like a drug. And unfortunately, the child racketeering and human selling of sex slaves is more prevalent in America today than drugs and alcohol, or drugs and alcohol put together. So now we've had a year where George Soros got the news in 2019, actually, October 19th, 2019, Event 201 happened, which is where the Gates Foundation and all their criminal friends got together, Johns Hopkins Hospital, and they agreed on this military exercise next year called COVID-19. So this was planned October 19th, 2019, and it's filmed. It's all over YouTube. Event 201. You can look it up. I tell a lot of straight people that know nothing, why don't you start at Event 201? But not only was it the people that were planning to release the virus to the world, it was really, really important that the media blow it up and scare the crap out of people. So it was completely organized October 19th, 2019, and they pulled it off in December, and China knew, and some of the American communists knew, and they pulled it off successfully, but Trump stopped and blocked a lot of ways that they were really planning to kill a lot more of us than they succeeded at killing. But I've been watching way too closely so that when I put on a mask to walk into a place, I am angered. I have to take a big breath to put it on, and then I apologize to all the people working there that they have to do it for 8 hours a day. And I say to all of them, mark my words, in 2 or 3 months, we're going to have a, remember in the 60s it was a bra burning, we're going to have a mask burning. And it's going to be stunning when the American people and all the other people around the world realize that their politicians, their people that they trusted, agreed to join the CDC and the WHO and do this to their people. And they're paying in these back channels, these senators, these mayors that maybe aren't blackmailed with dirty videos of horrible things they've done. Maybe instead they're just getting that $6 million payment in the back door in payments every month through a third-party friend of theirs or an organization that they set up offshore. All these people are making a lot of money. Every week they continue masking and locking down their citizens. These monsters are making money, these politicians. And who's paying them? Soros. And who stands to make a fortune? Gates, Fauci, Moderna, the drug companies. But wait a minute, Trump just cut off the drug companies in China. Everything's going to be made here now. Trump also cut off travel to China because he realized they're seriously threatening us because they got caught. And they're not happy. And I think the epitome of stuck on stupid was when Nancy Pelosi last week said, the Trump flu. That woman, I'm sorry, I have to be polite, but I'm having a hard time watching what we call politicians, people that the American public are paying, doing things that are blatantly against the goodwill of people and against our health and safety. They know that the masks cut off our air supply. They know that the masks are doing far more danger to humans than to not wear it and run the risk of that 0.0001% that you might get COVID unless you're, of course, over 70 and already have a number of diseases. I've talked to a few people that have very sadly told me that they knew somebody that died, but then they followed it up with, and she had. So a lot of people, now we've got the doctors and nurses, of course, they're being pulled off YouTube. Del Bigtree was pulled off today. They took his website down. Del Bigtree, the big vaccine guy. And Patty Greer, they took me down. So I love it that the Congress held up those four titans and made them answer questions, and they just kept lying. So what's going on now is Trump isn't handing the baton over. What he's doing is he's sitting back, planned out very, very well in advance, letting these horrific politicians show the people of America how god-awful they are and how far they're going to run with this behavior. So it's pretty stunning. I've seen two invoices. One was just today where on a receipt, there's new charges called COVID-19, and it's a few dollars. And when you go to a restaurant, you've got a COVID charge. When you go to Kroger's grocery store, you've got a Kroger charge. I think there was one that was actually a BLM charge on a receipt. So now the stores that are willing to work with these people that are keeping us in masks and trying to get everybody to stay scared are starting to be a little too exposed. And the people in their cities are starting to say, I don't think so. I want to open my restaurant. I want to go here without a mask on. And it's a war now in our society. And if people don't stop guessing that he's a horrible man and actually choose to say, I'm going to vote for Biden. I'm sorry. I don't mean to make fun of the old guy with dementia, but please, that is not a presidential candidate. I'm embarrassed for my country. Is he a placeholder? Are they going to bring in, Michelle Obama and Hillary at the last minute? Who knows? But I think he's a placeholder because he just hasn't been able to, God forbid, hold a conversation with Trump. What do they call those? Not a conversation, but, a presser with Trump. I don't think we're going to see that before this election. And usually that's pretty normal. We get to see how intelligent and what their decisions are for the country. But Joe is pretty clear that he likes China. He likes communist China. And the people that he works with, his son is, really being interrogated with, his Ukrainian deal. And there's an awful lot of criminal behavior. And I'm really hoping, now that I've been watching Trump's mouth move and seeing that he's actually really drawing up some serious changes through these executive orders. And the only reason he has to do executive orders is because the whole government will not agree with him. If he takes it to the Senate, if he takes it to the Congress, they're not going to agree because there's too many criminals still. So I believe that very soon we're going to see a monstrous takedown and a big sweep. And all those things he was mentioning, human trafficking, I know we've all seen the videos. Those guys are my heroes that are going in and pretending that they've got a 13-year-old girl that sets them up. They've got it recorded. All the police are waiting. One of them has a dog, and they're just nailing them one after another after another. And I'm sorry to say I enjoyed that this week, because letting the criminals out of jail, what? I mean, so many criminals get away with it in court, but when you finally get a few hundred of them that did horrible things, you don't just let them out. But these same maggot governors, senators, and mayors that are they emptied out their jails because, gosh, we don't want them to put on a mask and, get COVID-19. Still, oh my God, we have to worry about them more than all the good people that they're going to go out and harm. These have been insane decisions by really, really bad politicians. And I really hope that Trump has just been sitting back watching along with the American public, so that the sweep, the draining the swamp, is not going to be some arrogant, nasty rich guy pretending, that he's all that in a bag of chips. I think he's pulling it off, and I think he's doing a damn good job, only because I'm watching. I would have never known. And I think that that's what's going on, especially in Boulder. Oh, we're so cool. Colorado. I'm sorry. It used to be so wonderful here. Anyway, I really vote for all of us, like Laura said, to be a stellar, independent version of yourself, because right now we have an opportunity for greatness. We are either going to completely fall into a horrific state, which I'm not going to go into because I don't believe it's going to happen, but that is what they planned, like Laura was saying. But they are being pulled out by the roots. And I pray that Gitmo is over full. And I pray that maybe all these jails that were emptied out were to put the mayors and the senators and the governors and their family and friends in. And imagine if we took back all that income that they've made and stolen and gotten in the back door. Imagine how that could rebuild their cities. So that's how I see it. Another executive order that he did was he cut the eternal payments to government officials. So when you stop working, you don't still get hundreds of thousands a month or a year. I don't even remember. They get paid way more than they're worth, but they have, forever until they die payments, and we just stopped that. So if you think of defunding the WHO, the World Health Organization, defunding the politicians, certainly not defunding the cops, which all these dirty politicians want, but when we take back America from the communist Chinese, which I had no idea we had sold out so much, but the WHO, the World Health Organization, the CDC, they're not American, they're not ours. Maybe the CDC has Americans working there, I don't know, but it is not in the interest of the good people of this country. And I still believe there's enough of us that are great people in this country. And when I say heroes, when I saw those heroes go in and just take down one after another pedophile, my heart just went out. And I think that it might be what a lot more people are going to have to do in America to get rid of this problem. Or Trump just needs to ignore these ridiculous politicians and bring in the National Guard and clean up these riots. What I will say is I have heard very creepy warnings that tomorrow night, Saturday night, the 1st of August, there are going to be a lot of police stations blown up and or burned in many different cities. This is a notification that was put out by BLM and Antifa. They're proud of their threats. They claim that they're going to have snipers on rooftops. They're claiming horrific things, but unfortunately, they're already doing them. And even though that little teeny Nadler that wears his pants up to his underarms and runs the Congress with his little teeny whip, he actually said these words. It's peaceful protests. There's no violence. And behind him, when he said it, there's a huge building burning. This is the epitome of stuck on stupid. This is the epitome of the loss of the American integrity with politicians, with news media, and with people with too much money. So I think that we are in the greatest exposure in history. And there's enough people like the three of us that are not willing to give up and give in. And I've had 3 attempts on my life. I still don't walk well after number 2. I have a hard time, and I am every day working on healing because I have a mouth and I believe in people more than ego or pride or whatever. I've been wounded hard, and I'm still at it because I know we can do it if we stay strong. Each and every one of us. Like Laura was saying, we got to buckle up, and we can't just sit back and say like on Facebook or share on Facebook or retweet. You know, you got to get out there and you got to start educating people because it is a very different world. And I will not say the new normal, but I don't think we're ever going back to how it was. And frankly, there's many things about it I don't miss. The sky is pretty, the traffic is less. There's far fewer planes, and most of us aren't going shopping. So that's far less bags. That's far less products. That's far less imports and far less rubbish, trash. So I think that, you know, if I can find any jewel in this haystack, it's that we're going to be consuming less and wasting less and hopefully moving into a much brighter future, much more consciousness. But we have to take out the trash. And I really encourage people to start, please, stop hating Trump so much unless you listen to his executive orders and what he's saying he's doing for America, and you really believe that those things are bad for Americans. If you really believe it after you listen to him, then I'm wrong and that's okay. But boy, did it surprise me. And I never expected to sit down and listen to political conversations, but man, we are in it deep. And we've got an opportunity to win big. So when Laura was saying, you know, once all these wars and all this energy that's just dark and fighting, you know, if we can stay above it and on an even keel, we're going to make it. And it's going to be a far better world. So I don't know about Nasara, Jasara, you know, which is the Jubilee, the great perfect everything. I don't know if we're going to get there, but somewhere in between is where we're headed, as long as we stay strong. So I wish everybody radiant healing. And Alfred and I take C60 Evo. It's how I think I'm just staying nice, because really I could go postal in a heartbeat. Stuff I've seen, the people I've met that are doing horrible things and not getting caught. It would be easy to just, you know, be a mean person at this point, but we have got to find our peace, be the best versions of ourselves.
Awesome. Wow. That's amazing. So I got to run, but I'll be back to listen, and I really look forward to it. I have to say the planet Venus is just something we want to get more acquainted with. It's incredibly reassuring, and I know the information Alfred's going to bring is going to be exactly that. So thanks everybody. I'm going to have to sign off, but Patty, that was so incredible, and great to spend time with you guys again.
Nice to see you. Thank you. Well, Alfred's doing Venus and we did Earth.
Thank you. So I'm going to screen share here and come over to here. And bring us to a visit to Venus. So this is a visit to Venus, and brought to you by a now 5-part series of Visit to Venus that you can find at truetube.co, which as of today is a new censor-free. We've actually created a new channel online that in the midst of all this, BitChute and Vimeo and YouTube and Facebook, all the big tech taking down the truth, we've created TrueTube, which will not take down any information. So you can go to truetube.com and .co rather, and the information there will not be taken down. And this program is going to be uploaded onto the new truetube.co. And what we're going to see here is just a small sample, just a few slides of what is now a 5-part series. Actually, this coming Tuesday, we'll be doing the 5th program in the series of Visit to Venus. It's courtesy of Raymond Keller, Professor Raymond Keller, who's a Venus visitor. He's actually been to Venus, spent 6 weeks there, and a Venus contactee, and Robert Potter, also a Venus contactee. So the purpose of this slideshow is to go through some of the slides, show some of the slides, and to correct some of the deliberate disinformational misconceptions that have been perpetrated on humanity, the big lies that have been perpetrated on humanity by, I would call it, malevolent controllers here on Earth that want to keep Earth inside of, let's call it, the reptilian agenda of war, disease, crime, and poverty, which is now ending. We're coming to the end of the reptilian, various sorts of reptilian, Draco-reptilian, hybrid Anunnaki reptilian. Some people call them the Zionists. But all of that is ending. And Venus is in a planet, in a solar system that has seen a lot of travail, a lot of solar system warfare. Venus as well. Venus has managed to maintain a 5D, fifth dimensional society, very much space age. Its cities are like, anything that you could imagine in the space age. Beautiful 5D cities and 5D civilization that are in unity consciousness, and that really are sort of the older sibling looking out for its fellow human planet Earth and trying to keep Earth so that Earth stays as does not fall and stays on an ascension and in a higher frequency, and does not fall into a deeper reptilian agenda. So we'll just go through some slides to open one's perspectives as to the planet Venus. Now, the first slide is that this is Venus as photographed during a recent Venus flyby. And Venus is a verdant planet like Earth. It's not hidden by gases and it's horrible and the temperatures are such that you'll never survive. That is an utter and blatant lie and misinformation. And it was perpetrated by the reptilian matrix structure. There's all sorts of names for it, the deep state, the scientific canon, you know, the Zionist hybrid, Anunnaki hybrid structure, the controllers who have wanted to keep Earth as a prison planet for humans and separate from the Earth humans from their other human brothers and sisters in the solar system. And so they say there's a lot that NASA's not telling the public about Venus. Venus, in fact, is Earth's sister planet. Both worlds are approximately the same size, have rocky surfaces, and water vapor in their respective atmospheres. Venus is an intelligent life planet that has a 5D society and is really the predominant planet in the solar system. And that's what Venus is. And that's why the scientific establishment here has portrayed it as a dangerous planet filled with storms and poisonous gas and all sorts of blatant lies. This is, Venus has been photographed most by the Russians. It's the Russians that have been allowed to get closer to Venus, not by the Americans, who the Americans are really it's the Americans that have gone and made a series of secret treaties with the Anunnaki, with the Draco reptilians, starting with in 1933 with FDR in aboard a battleship in Balboa, Panama, then updated with Harry Truman in 48, and then as Laura can testify, in 1954, Dwight Eisenhower signed the Greada Treaty, and then in the Tau 9 Treaty under George H.W. Bush. And it's these treaties that have created the infrastructure of turning the Earth into a pedocriminal planet, because the Dracos demanded, and we have whistleblowers from the military bases, the Dracos demanded the delivery of so many cases of baby meat, human baby meat a month at the military bases. There was delivery of human body parts, human slaves, infants, children at the underground bases. Through the secret treaties, the jurisdiction of entire law enforcement, the FBI, the US police, was placed under the treaties, the secret treaties. We did a series on the Droop Mountain State Park, where there was pedophilia and pedocriminal bases under the Droop Mountain, West Virginia State Park. And when the West Virginia State Troopers were drawn in, the West Virginia State Troopers' hats even had the pedocriminal symbol on their hats. And all that is an infrastructure drawn in from the secret treaties with the Dracos. And we've documented all that in our latest book, Emergence of the Omniverse. So this is very structural and it's very deep. And Laura Eisenhower and I have done a program. We put a petition online after Donald Trump said that the US can abrogate treaties, that he can abrogate the treaties that the US is part of, and he abrogated the Treaty of Rome. Well, we put a petition online, and that's online now, at which many, many people signed to abrogate, that he abrogate the US from all the secret treaties with the Dracos. And Laura Eisenhower said that she would walk those petitions into the Oval Office, because as soon as the US withdraws from those secret treaties from the Dracos, then this entire power structure falls, because that's the source of the negative power. The US, the Zionists, who are hybrid Anunnaki reptilians, it all comes from those secret treaties. So we're going to the source of that negative power. So we're waiting for that action from Trump to abrogate those secret treaties. Now, then we would have the open alliance with the Venusians, who are at 5D, and they have the ability to come and to, it's called translation, and to relate with us at 3D into a translation. That is the ascension that is talked about, because they can translate with us and translate us up to 5D. And you can see here on October 25th, 1975, Venera 10, which is was one of the Soviet vessels. It was the Russians that got closest to the Venusians, because they weren't reptilian. They were dealing with the higher ETs. Ironically, there's all kinds of paradoxes. Landed on the surface of Venus and acquired a 180-degree panorama of the surface. And they use the images, and this is the scene of Venus. It's just like Earth. It's got rocks and valleys and forests and all kinds of stuff. It's not this gaseous poison that's going to, you've got, it's a human planet, just like Earth. And they're in 5D, and that's what ascension is. It's the integration of Earth and Venus. And they translate us up to the 5th dimension. And that's what it is. And we have to withdraw. So that's where we're waiting for Trump to abrogate those treaties. And it's Laura, and we did a program about a year ago in which Laura said that she would walk it into the Oval Office and walk our petitions in and abrogate the secret treaties. So you can just see how transparent this entire thing is, and how we're talking about solar system. We're approaching things at a solar system and interdimensional exopolitical level. So the fact is that Venus rules the solar system. The moon, our Earth moon, is actually a Venusian colony. And it's Venus that controls the moon, and the Venus Alliance controls the moon. And because I had interviewed over the years, Exopolitics TV had talked to a lot of secret space program people, and people who say, oh no, the moon is a way station for the secret space program. And, you know, that's where they go to Mars. See, because Mars has a lot of Earth government bases on it. There are no Earth government bases on Mars. I mean, on Venus. It's very different from Mars. Mars has been colonized by the draconian elements from Earth. And that's why Richard B. Cheney, who we found as a war criminal in the Kuala Lumpur War Crimes Tribunal, was the chairman of the Mars Colony Corporation. And they have an exploitative view toward planets. And on Mars, you can go to exopolitics.com, and you see that we have articles there that are showing slave factories. We actually have photographs of slave factories from Earth on Mars. And Mars is a prison colony of Earth. So we're talking about changing over the whole solar system by expelling the reptilians, terminating the reptilian secret treaties on Earth, bringing in the Venusians, translating up. The moon is actually a Venusian colony. It's called Clarion. And things are much lighter there. It's the fake news of the reptilian controlled secret space program that had been saying that darkness controlled the solar system, because that has been changing now. In fact, you can see this is a newspaper. All of these are from the 5-part Visit to Venus programs that you can find at truetube.co, which I encourage you to go there. Just go to truetube.co, and in the index, enter Venus, and all those programs will come up. See, this is back in the day. So this is Khrushchev's party reform. So this is from an old American newspaper from the 50s. But back in the 50s, things were much more open. Look at that. Radio signals from Venus. You used to have signaling from Venus that was openly reported in the newspapers. That's a Chicago Daily Tribune. I was a freelance reporter from Europe for the Chicago Daily Tribune. They carried some of my articles reporting on women's peace camps and other issues in the 1980s in Europe. Look at that, radio signals from Venus. That's the Chicago Tribune. You wouldn't have that now. The Earth has been shut down by the reptilian agenda. So we're going to be opening all that up. We just have to terminate those treaties, get rid of that influence.
That's awesome.
Here we have the gentleman guides the Venusians in red berets. There they are in red berets. To the outside of the assembly hall where they were introduced to the cosmic ray with a green shirt and begin to mingle some of the attendees. This is a meeting. those Venusians were dropped off according to the presentation. They were dropped off by a Venusian ship close by here and then came in and made the presentation. There are a lot of Venusian ambassadors here on the planet now, huge amount of Venusians here on the planet. Now, these two ladies, they look like very young, you know, sort of ladies. They're actually about 400 or 500 years old by our time, because they're more advanced and they've been translated down from 5D down to 3D. That's a close-up of, she's Lady Columba on that visit, and that's Professor Raymond Keller, who we've been doing the 5-part series on A Visit to Venus. We're going to do the 5th part on this coming Tuesday. I urge you to go to truetube.co and begin to tune into the visit to Venus, because that is the future of the solar system. That is the future of Earth. Our alliance with our brothers and sisters on Venus in 5D is the future of Earth. That's the future of Earth. One of the warnings that comes from Venus is don't lose control of the technology, because they had to fight their own, what they call the war against the machines. And that is the war against AI. And we are in that same period now. Why? Because we have an invading, sentient, pathogenic, predatory artificial intelligence that is attempting to terraform the planet and make this an AI planet as opposed to a divine incarnation planet. And that started in earnest in from April to June 1982 in the Falklands War, where a group of Blue ETs, there was a Blue ET base, underground base, that had been trying to reprogram the PPAI, the predatory artificial intelligence, that had been embedded in a plasma, a black plasma, under the Falkland Islands, under Tool Island since World War I. And US intelligence, the negative side of it, the reptilian side of it, through, and the United Kingdom, which is a reptilian entity, the Queen of England, who's probably the ruling reptile, ordered Margaret Thatcher to start a false flag war to attack the Falkland Islands. So everybody thought it was about the sovereignty of the Falkland Islands, but it was really to destroy the Blue ET base, grab some of the black goo, the AI, and bring it back to the UK so that they could begin to weaponize it and use it as a profit center. And that's how the AI was loosed upon the world, and how the AI was brought back to Marconi Labs in England. It killed all of the workers in Marconi Labs. They died horrible deaths. It escaped into the satellite system. You can follow this entire story by going to exopolitics.com. There's a right-hand menu, it says artificial intelligence. You can go there and follow about 10 or so panels and about 25 articles and be brought up to date on the AI invasion. There are many humans who at that time were made AI sponsors and hosts. What the AI did is that they converted a lot of human elites into sponsors and hosts in the 80s, such as Prince Charles, because he was with the UK monarchy, such as Bill Gates, then head of Microsoft. And that's why Gates has such a pivotal role now in the COVID-19, which is actually a terraforming project of the AI. There is no COVID-19 virus. It is all a cover story for the 5G radiation. That's why all the articles that it's the 5G radiation that people are dying of are being taken down by big tech, in other words, by YouTube, by Vimeo, by BitChute. We had all of our articles taken down, and that's why we've started TrueTube.co, and now our very first article on an interview that's going up tomorrow is with a panel of 2 doctors and a nurse that 5G radiation is the cause of the pandemic, and that COVID-19 is a cover story. So there's a lot to be accounted for, a lot of education that has to be done, including to the POTUS. Because on March 26, 2020, the POTUS signed the 5G master legislation, which unleashed 5G onto the United States of America. So there's massive confusion here. And we have a massive education job on our hands. Now, so that's our short visit to Venus. There's a conference coming up. Urge everyone to go. You can meet the Venusians in person. There will be Venusians there. We are in contact, meet the Venusians. It's the Mount Shasta Summer Conference, August 25th to 30th. You can get special discount tickets only at this link. And Laura will be presenting there. I'll be presenting there. There'll be Venusian ambassadors that will be presenting. There'll be people from South America, contactees. And this is the future. The future is with the progressive human civilizations from other planets who are in higher densities, with whom we have to make exopolitical alliances who can help us ascend to their frequencies. That's what ascension is, in my opinion. So that's our sharing of Venus. And
that's the news from Earth and from Venus.
Yeah.
July 31, 2020.
Yeah. So thank you very much.
Fascinating. Thank you. That was
Oh,
really very unusual. Unusual news, to think that they are as and more advanced as us as far as having all kinds of things on the planet. And of course, we've been lied to. Gee, that sounds familiar. But in conclusion, we need to look forward to the future and do everything in the now to make it the best day ever.
thank you so much. And on behalf of Laura Eisenhower, Patty Greer, and myself, Alfred Lambremont Webre, thank you for watching and enjoying another episode of NewsEvolution on TrueTube.co. And may you have a wonderful day, week, year, life.
Life.
And until we see you again, thank you.